Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. Thank you all for coming. Welcome to Gray Decision Intelligence Demand Trends webinar monthly series. And thank you again for joining us. Please pat yourselves on the back for attending. In our current higher education landscape, being data informed is vital. We are discussing academic program evaluation and growth for higher education. Each month, we do share the latest trends and insights for academic program planning. We are pleased to have with us Mary Paesa Upchurch, who's Gray DI's Executive Vice President of Customer Success. Mary leads the relationships with our education clients to meet their unique concerns and requirements. My name is Mary Ann Romans. During the webinar, my Gray DI colleagues and I will be available to answer any questions you may have. Allow me to share a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions, please place them in the Q&A section or in the chat at the bottom of your screen. We will try to get to as many of them as possible, and we will certainly follow up with you offline if we run out of time. You can also use the chat area for comments and discussion. After the webinar, we will be sending you a link to the slides and the video recording. And without further ado, I will hand things off to Mary to get us started.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Good afternoon to most everyone, except for the teams on the West Coast, and it's still a good morning to you. It's my pleasure to join you today and to share some of the latest information on demand trends that have come into data. So there's a few things we wanted to touch on today. Mary Ann mentioned a couple. Program evaluation, just very briefly, and then walking through both program demand data, looking at the employment data information that we have, the latest ones, and then doing just a drop of spotlight onto 3 individual states. I am going to apologize because I'm not flipping my own slides today. My computer has decided to give me some grief. So Monica is assisting me and she will be clicking. I'm based in Phoenix and Monica is in the Northeast. So please forgive the verbal cues. So Monica, let's start. Let's go ahead and flip. Okay, let's talk about academic program evaluation and, what matters. All of the elements that we have on the screen here matter. This is how Gray thinks about it. We think about it in terms for your institution, the mission that you're undertaking, the specificity of that, and the alignment of your program portfolio with it to support it and to grow it. Academics are a core component related to that, whether those are institutional academic standards or accreditor standards, and then, of course, outcomes from the students that graduate from your institution. Margins are important because they are what create the capacity for investment and growth. And then outside the 4 walls, the markets piece. And today we're really pretty much going to dwell in the markets area. It's wrapped around with several different things that we feel are very critically important as you use data in both a data-informed way as well as an exploratory way. And it starts first and foremost with people. The more people that can have data in their hands, the more data can be democratized, the best use can be made of it. And then having a process in which you can employ the data and apply it is very, very helpful. We have dashboards and other things, scorecards for programs and many different ways to organize both market as well as program economics information. But having a process in which you have consistency and an ease of access for that information to use it means that you'll be able to visit and look at program information on a much more frequent basis than has happened, at least in the past, on some type of 5 or 7 year cycle for full-on programmatic review. And then we've added something new, and that's predict. We've developed some additional tools to help predict program sizes and to compare where current programs may be at to give you a sense of opportunity for growth. Brought together, ideally, they give you a viewpoint and the information that you need to drive a sustainable, viable, vital program portfolio to have growth and support your financials. So part of the data we're going to talk about today is how that process gets informed. So Monica? I want to start out by talking about program demand data, and we're going to touch on each of the 4 areas that are noted here. But before we do that, I thought since summertime, things are a little easier and a little lighter, we might want to talk about how data can matter and put it into a context. So most of the United States in the month of June, there are a lot of triple-digit temperatures. So we thought it would be fun to take a look at, well, what goes on with triple digits in the educational sector. So a couple of thoughts. Go ahead, Monica. Well, in the month of May, the highest 3-digit bachelor spring 24 new enrollment program was Aviation and Aerospace Science and Technologies with 986. A comment about data. I can make a case for a lot of different things with numbers. It's contextually how those numbers are positioned. So while this is the highest 3-digit bachelor spring program, the actual biggest one was business administration and management with over 16,000 new enrollees. And then we've got the job posting skill with the highest 3-digit volume in May, something called fund accounting. That may not be something you're terribly aware of, but it is an interesting skill. It's for recording resources whose use has been limited by the donor, grant authority, governing agency, or other individuals or organizations by law. A little factoid you may find useful. Now, understanding that, the largest skill that has been requested in the month of May has been nursing. So totally different comparison point. And then go ahead, Monica, let's click a couple of others onto the screen. We've got the highest 3-digit 2022 online completions. That's kinesiology and exercise science. However, registered nursing outstripped that by over 60,000. So again, a very big variance in the data and how you want to apply it. And then we've got in spring, the percent of bachelor's programs with fewer than 999 new spring enrollments. Actually, a surprising number here, 45%. And then we have some other interesting data here on the highest 3-digit Google searches. Environmental education had 970. However, nursing again wins the prize at over 739,000 searches in total. And then we've got PAs as the occupation with the highest 3-digit job postings growth in the month of May. And that's at 992, but software developers were far larger than that at 29,640. So it's about how you think about the data and the context you put it into that makes a difference in the conclusions that you can draw. It's why we try to bring multiple data sources to bear as you think about it. So let's lead in then to talking about demand, programmatic demand. Monica? We start with Google search. It's an interesting area. In May of 2024, Google searches were relatively flat, just up 1% year over year. So not a lot of change. And you can see they were up slightly over April, but moving back towards levels with March. So this is the very, very front end of the funnel for when you're thinking about programmatic academic demand, what people are actually looking for to give you a sense. Go ahead, Monica. Now, let's take a look at cost per click because getting a search can cost you. And the use of this data for demand data has multiple applications. So if you're on the marketing side for a program, this matters to you. The average cost per click was almost flat year over year. And you can see kind of the ranges from 22 to 24. It's only moved a couple of cents. But that disguises the wide variance inside of it for what cost per clicks cost between programs. Actually, for the month of May, the highest cost per click for a program was social work at $41.10. So you want to be specific. Overall trends are good. You want to take a look at programs. Monica? Now, searches for academic program. In May, the searches for fashion merchandising programs increased 95% year over year. That was across the board. Nursing, as I mentioned before, had the highest volume of searches, but percentage-wise, fashion merchandising was high. However, taking data once again into context is important because while this may be high, actually new enrollment growth fell 2% for fashion merchandising year over year across all award levels. So this search volume has not yet materialized on the enrollment side. And you can see several of the other areas. We've got, several professions or programs that are in the quantitative space. like taxation and economics and statistics, and then, of course, the health programs, which tend to be perennially strong. Okay, so let's now start talking about enrollment. Go ahead, Monica. Spring enrollment, those statistics have finally come out, and the spring of this year, new student enrollment at the country level, the US market level, fell 4% year over year at the bachelor's level. And you can see here kind of it's a little bit of an undulating movement going back to 2019. It had been down, it went up, went down, went up, and has come down again. Master's is a little bit different. It had a significant swing up if we go back all the way to 2021, and then down for the following 2 years, and now it's back up at 5%. Monica? Computer software. Go ahead and flip, please, Monica. Computer software engineering grew 34% year over year in the spring enrollment. So you can see the STEM fields here are all showing strong in the top 10. We're seeing a lot of elementary education and teaching and education in general are now rising to the top in the growth areas. Cyber has been in the top 10 for at least a year or so, and registered nursing is finally starting to pick up again. It still has experienced negative growth since academic year 21-22, but it's starting to grow again. Monica, would you flip to master's, please? Data analytics and data science are up 39% year over year. And again, you can see the presence of the STEM fields here. Mental health counseling and data analytics and cyber are routine regulars here in this program grouping. Math and history, though, are new. So we're seeing a little bit of a shift, at least for the spring. We'll follow it and we'll see where the fall takes us. Let's talk about non-degreed. Non-degreed is an interesting area because oftentimes it's a leader. It gives you a sense of where interest is. For those of you thinking about certificate programs, sometimes it can help inform that. Or if you're thinking about skills that might be useful to add to a current program you may have, this also can be an input. This data is from Coursera. It's non-degreed demand. There are over 133, almost 134 million total learners since the data started tracking, and their enrollment was up 15% year over year. Now, what's interesting is what are the fastest growing courses that are driving that growth. There are a lot of them are in the data and the STEM areas: foundations, data everywhere, AI for everyone, and foundations of user experience, UX, as well as design and technical support fundamentals, excuse me. Introduction to Psych is in there, and the science of well-being is also in there. There are a number of others, but there are quite a few areas in the data science space still that are leading this area. From a skills standpoint, these are the skills of greatest growth that were most taught. And it's interesting because in the skills space, the majority are in personal growth areas, more than are in the technology space. That's a continuing trend as well. So it's an interesting perspective on how people are thinking about where they want to spend their time and hopefully completing these courses. And then let's talk about the last area of student demand for programs, and that's in the international space. In May, international student interest in the US increased 28% year over year. And if you look at this bar stack, you can see it's been on a continued upward trend from prior years. The country listings for page views, because that's how we track it, are on the right, of course, led first by India, and that has been a consistent trend for some time. And then you can see the remaining 9 countries that are here. But it is a significant change in growth. And then from a program standpoint, bachelor's year over year is actually showing up in nursing. And then you can see cybersecurity is the second at 89% growth, and then aerospace. So STEM areas are still strong. And at the master's level, we're seeing a bigger presence here in relationship to education as well. So it's a continuing trend, even on the international student interest area. Business remains high, and of course, data science, computers, digital marketing, et cetera, are the other areas. All right. So let's shift to a discussion about employment. Job posting trends in May of this year are up 17% year over year. They are not back to 22 levels in terms of total postings, but they are coming up, and they are coming up over the course of the year as well, not just year over year. We've got a number of postings that are increasing for AI. So I want to spend one moment on that. In May, 69,000 job postings were related to the 7 job occupational codes for artificial intelligence. That year over year change was over 100%, because a year ago it was only 35,500 jobs postings related to it. May's total unit change related to AI jobs represents almost 10% of that postings change. The month over month changes here in these statistics for this year, again, are a little bit up and down. February's job postings were up 35% over January of this year. March came down slightly by 10%. April was up at 12%, and now May over April is up 3%. So May's holding a strong year over year, as well as comparison to the prior month. Let's step just one more level deeper, because when you think about programs, you want to think about not just overall broad areas, but other metrics that might be useful as you're considering program interest strength. These are some metrics for bachelor's and master's programs dealing with artificial intelligence. And you can see the statistics. I won't read them out for you on the screen, but keyword searches are up and down. The volumes are up and down. Postings are up considerably, 106%. Enrollment is up significantly year over year, even though it's a small base, always important to keep in mind. Completions growth is up as well, and international student demand is up. And then we've listed over here the 3 most requested certifications that are coming up in job postings, starting with security clearance, professional engineering, and CompTIA security. If you're thinking about using data and wanting to drive down further, let's say you have an industry you're thinking about, well, or a geographic sector, there's a ways to do that too. So Monica, would you flip? So what about artificial intelligence opportunities in the Northeast? Well, here's a listing of job postings that's coming out of our Job Postings Insight dashboard data, so you know. And you can see there are 1,202 postings related to AI, excuse me, in the past year, and it's mapped here by month. And then to the right, we have it mapped by industry. So you can see here hospitals and health clinics actually outpaced information technology in this particular space, and then followed by retail and wholesale, financial, and aerospace and defense. And then if we wanted to dive a little bit further, an industry example for that you might want to say, well, if I'm looking at retail and wholesale, what does that look like? Go ahead, please, Monica. So this is May of 2024 job postings associated with AI in the retail industry. It also grew. The numbers are not big, but it's growing. This is obviously an emerging category, exploded onto the scene in a material way last fall, a year ago, and now we're seeing it really begin to show up in the data. And you can see here the top required certifications for this industry. Security, an obvious one, but Google Professional Cloud Architect, Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, Agile, and Certified Business Analysis. Significant change, very, very high. So this is going to be interesting to see how it continues to play out for the balance of the year. We anticipate, though, it will only grow. Okay, so let's pivot and let's dig into a couple of states. I think we're going to spotlight 3 today, and we'll start with California. Go ahead, Monica. One of the things we want to mention is it's always important when you're thinking about data, whether it's student demand, employment opportunity, or even competition, that you're thinking about it in relationship to your institution's core markets. You can also look at it in terms of aspirational markets, recruiting markets, but data changes from market to market. And that means at the state, even the county level, certainly at the city or at the US market level. So this is California's bachelor's new enrollment. It fell year over year for the bachelor's area. You can see it's down 8%. We have the same 8%. Master's is up 8% for the 2 years. So a little bit different than some of the US trends. and rate of change considerably different. Go ahead, Monica. In terms of the fastest growing new enrollment programs, these are the top 10. And education programs, interestingly enough, in the state accounted for half of the fastest growing new enrollment programs here. School psychology led the group with a 53% enrollment, followed by teacher education, elementary ed, educational and instructional technology also. Curriculum and instruction is at the 9th spot here. And then you can see we've got engineering that's popped up, health services, we've got student and guidance counseling, and social work rounds out the list. A different profile than the US market. Go ahead, please. California job postings data indicates a strong increase, again, 34% up year over year, but also still not back to the 22 levels itself. All right, Monica, go ahead. Now, to my comment earlier about how things can change. This is within the state of California. We've got the highest job growth listed here, one for Alameda County on the left and the other on Riverside County on the right. And these are year over year unit changes for the month of May. In Alameda County, it's being driven by software developers and applications, and then general and operations managers, industrial engineers, marketing managers, and physical therapists. While in Riverside County, PT, physical therapist leads with the largest change, then computer user support specialists, mental health and substance abuse social workers, management, and psychiatric technicians, to two very different profiles for two different geographies. Go ahead, Monica. The skills profile is also different, and I won't read off all of those, but usually they follow the jobs that we just looked at. So you can see project management, computer science, and then marketing, Python, and finance. And in Riverside, more in the health space, nursing, and behavioral health as well. Construction, though, made it in here. Now let's look to the east. Let's go to Ohio. So here, their growth factor for undergraduate dropped 5% year over year, but following the overall national trend, master's was up by 6%. So positive change on the one hand, unfortunately, a negative downturn on the other. Monica, job postings are up, however, and keeping with a similar percentage to California, 33%. It's getting very close to where job postings were in 2022 in May, a little closer than we have seen in any of the other geographies. Go ahead, Monica. Software developer job postings were the largest growth area year over year in the state of Ohio, followed by nurses and then accounting and auditors, and rounded out by medical sciences, except epidemiologists. Go ahead, Monica. The healthcare industry had the highest number of job postings in the month of May. Financial services, however, had the highest average salary. So you can see healthcare, and then it's followed by retail wholesale, manufacturing, education, and it's rounded out by construction, repair, and maintenance services themselves. And then finally, Rhode Island. So we're going to give you a little bit different view on data. Online education, the numbers have come out now from NC-SARA for 2022 fall enrollment. And for those of you who don't work with this data, NC-SARA is the administrative organization that makes it possible for educational institutions to offer their programs online in a multitude of geographies. The only state that does not participate in NC-SARA is the state of California. So we don't have that data in the database, but this is Rhode Island's picture. They had an interesting situation of students coming into the state for online and students leaving the state for online, and students who were in state staying in state for online. There were 3,376 students from outside of the state of Rhode Island that elected to enroll for an online program, fully online, offered by an institution in Rhode Island. But another 6,298 students that live in Rhode Island opted to enroll in programs from institutions who are not housed or located in the state of Rhode Island. And you can see here, SNHU was the largest acquirer of that student share, followed by Western Governors and then Penn Foster. So Rhode Island suffered a net loss of almost 3,000 students from what they brought in to who they sent out on balance, which means those tuition dollars flowed out of state. And if anything was financed, that debt dollar set stayed in state. Okay, let's go to postings for Rhode Island. Their job postings were up year over year as well, 23%. And in this instance, they have exceeded where they were in May last year, as well as in 2022. So now they have crossed that line here. And then finally, the demand for therapists is a strong growth area for them. Registered nurses led the growth in terms of unit change for May year over year. And then you can see software developers, physical therapists, and then preschool teachers here. So we do have education again popping up. And respiratory therapists and occupational therapists occupy the 7th and 9th areas. All right, so quick summary. Searches from Google's standpoint were essentially flat. And while fashion merchandising grew by a lot, we haven't seen that uptick in enrollment yet. Cost per click was relatively flat as well. But remember, there's always a wide range. And if you're thinking about programs and what's going on, you really want to look at the program under your consideration. Overall, we did see that the trend for bachelor's programs for new student enrollment in spring was down for the 3 sample states we looked at, as well as the US level. And master's was also consistently up for the same set of time periods. And then you can see here just a few points about where some of the highest enrollment was. But international student demand interest is growing. It had been down for some time, as you all know. And it is an important source of, inbound student enrollment for a number of institutions. So this is an encouraging perspective. Job postings are coming up and they're continuing to go up. Hopefully that will continue to hold as we move forward through the summer and into the fall. And then just a reminder, when you're thinking about using market data of any kind, you really want to think about where your market is, because it can vary significantly. If you can use it for the areas and you can cut it for the geographies that are of the greatest importance to you, you'll have the best insights to help you as you add that to the rest of your knowledge set when you're considering program opportunities and growth. We are happy for you if you would like to get any kind of a job posting description, search report, or some state-specific data. So please just let us know. You can pop it into the chat or let your representative know from Gray, or you can email me, any of us. I think Marianne just popped on a poll. So if you have a moment, could you fill it out? And then while you might be doing that, let me just mention about the upcoming webinars that we have. We have another one on July 24th that's specific to community colleges. And then we have July 25th, we've got another set of demand trends for bachelor's and above. And of course, then we'll be filling out our fall schedule. But in keeping with summer and the opportunity to be brief, I want to thank you again for your time today and your time here. And before we sign off, I'll just check with Marianne to see if there's any questions we need to answer that already haven't been cared for.
Yes, we have one. Any thoughts on why MA History and Masters in Math appeared in May?
Any thoughts I have would be speculation. Math, well, let me start with history. We know that bachelor's of history graduates go into over 400 different occupations, and it is oftentimes a program that's a launching pad to a higher level educational degree. Often leads into law and a number of other areas. We're in an election year again. I don't know if we're starting to see some of that effect. The last 2 times we've been through election cycles, there have been increases in enrollments in law programs as well. So that would be my speculation, but I have no data to prove that. For graduate degrees in math, I think it's because there's a growing awareness and desire for analytics. And sometimes those are math degrees and on the pathway to being data scientists. Other times it might be the type of math program for analytics. Although the, SIP taxonomy has now finally in the 2020 version gotten a little bit broader where you can classify it, but it much depends on how school is classified the reporting for their program. And we probably have to disentangle that a little bit further to get under it.
Good. I do not see any other questions, Mary.
Okay, well then, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the week. And from the, at least today, triple digit spot here in Phoenix, Arizona at 111 degrees, I want to say thank you and please stay cool.